All right, welcome back. This is the fifth video, the final video in the series on materials parsimony, the first biosphere rule. And we're going to take a look now at the business benefits you generate from pursuing materials parsimony. Remember, the biosphere rules are set up to be implemented stepwise. You can take the first step, generate business value, and that if you generate business value, that sets you up. You have a nice foundation then to move on to the next levels of the biosphere rules. All right? So, what is the business benefit of materials parsimony? Well, we can ask the opposite question. What are the costs of materials proliferation? What are the costs of complexity in your manufacturing system? There's been a lot of academic studies done around this, the costs of creeping complexity as we constantly innovate, add new features, add new materials, the new and improved of products. This usually ends to ever greater complexity and increasing cost. It becomes almost forgotten. It's sort of in the background. We become used to it, kind of like the frog in the pot, right? One study by a major global consultancy of just the top 30 companies in Germany found that the cost of complexity in their systems was estimated 30 billion euros a year. All right, that's real money, and that would be money that could be recovered just by simplifying their manufacturing processes, simplifying their supplier relationships, etc. Saving 30 billion euros. That's big money that's going to waste. So we can find a number of different business benefits coming out of parsimony. First, a lot of it comes out of your relationships with your suppliers, because if you pursue materials parsimony, you're concentrating demand around a smaller number of materials, right? So you're going to need fewer suppliers, and you're going to have you're going to lower your transaction costs. If you had 10 suppliers with 10 different materials, the cost of managing 5 suppliers, or if you can concentrate demand, reduces the transaction cost and the complexity of managing those relationships. So you have reduced supplier complexity. Now, the other thing is, if you're concentrating demand over fewer materials, that means you're buying more. If you're buying more from your suppliers, you're a better customer, and you can get volume discounts. You get purchase discounts for buying higher volumes of material. Not only that, you're a better customer, so you'll likely get better service because they'll be wanting to take care of you. You also then have, if you have fewer materials, fewer components, you reduce the production complexity. And this can really add up very quickly, just these benefits from materials parsimony. I told you about True Textiles in the previous video. True Textiles wanted to pursue materials parsimony and more or less their own approach to a green screen. They expected the costs of doing that would go up. They expected their procurement costs to rise as they approached this. But remember, they went from about 380 different materials down to 30 that they were using in the production of their textiles and their clothing. And they found then that their cost savings went up. They ended up where they expected it to be a several $100,000 cost, ended up to be a multi-$100,000 saving on an annual basis. And this came from, obviously, the reduction in the complexity of managing the supplier base, fewer suppliers, so you needed less of a staff and less time and energy and transaction costs to do that. And then they got better service, and they were able to get these volume discounts. So in the contrary to their initial thoughts, the materials parsimony steps they took actually reduced their costs and ended up into hundreds of thousands of dollars of annual savings. Right? And that's just from the demand concentration aspects, the less is more aspects of materials parsimony. Other benefits come because you have a better product. You have green product attributes that you can share with your marketplace, with your customers. You have increased environmental performance. This can add up. Consumers are becoming increasingly interested, and especially millennials are willing to preferentially choose environmentally responsible products, and even in some cases willing to pay a premium for those products. So an example of the benefits that came out of this is Camper. Camper is a major shoe manufacturer and seller. They're based in Spain, and this is their Wabi shoe. And you can see it's the main part of the shoe is a monomaterial, and it's made out of a single impression. So they compare this to sewing together different pieces of leather to produce a shoe, you can see the production costs of this shoe are going to be much lower than a regular shoe. There's and then there's a modular component. You can put in different types of soles if you want a softer sole or if you want a rubber sole, and you can add a sock if you want to be warm. And this so this actually has built-in materials parsimony, but it's also this really then new cool shoe. It's a kind of a funky shoe that was kind of cool. And then when you throw these sort of environmental benefits on it, you can actually then either expand your market by reaching out to customers because they're attracted to these things, or even generate perhaps a premium on your product. All right, so this is additional product attribute, sort of green, sustainable product attributes and benefits you can get by moving towards sustainable parsimony. Materials parsimony. And then finally, you actually, especially if you're green screening, you eliminate a lot of the problems that come with having to handle, manage, manifest, and control toxic materials. So if you're eliminating the toxics and preferentially selecting materials that are healthy for both people and the environment, you're going to improve your worker health and safety. You're going to get increased worker productivity. They're less likely to get sick. They're not going to be made sick by working in your manufacturing plant. So that means fewer days off, perhaps greater satisfaction in their work. You're also going to reduce your toxic risks. You have your risk of a spill, your risk of an accident, and you're going to reduce your compliance costs. So an example of this is Lockheed Martin, the aeronautics company. They had multiple sort of chlorinated base solvent systems they used for cleaning their high-tech components. They moved away from those multiple different solvents and consolidated around a water-based system, an aqueous-based system. And in doing so, they saved over nearly $500,000 in solvent procurement costs. They eliminated those solvent procurement costs. And that was just in the savings in the procurement itself. It didn't take into account the reduced complexity of managing those suppliers. Because they were no longer using these hazardous chemicals, they eliminated much of their compliance costs. If you're using water, there's nothing to regulate, and so you don't have to demonstrate and do all the manifesting and the regulatory requirements. So you reduce your compliance costs. And then also because you're using water, you're not using these solvents that become depleted, you don't have to throw them away. And so you reduce your disposal costs as well. On top of that, then they use that to create a closed loop system. So you're reusing that water-based solvent over again, which led to a dramatic decrease in water use. They were saving about 2 million gallons of water a year with the cost savings that come on top of that. Then what else is not incorporated in here is again, the improved environment, the lower risks of becoming sick for their workers inside the plant. So all in all, this materials parsimony, they went from a number of different systems down to a single system, aqueous-based, and generated a whole bunch of savings right out of that. Okay, so that's the beauty of materials parsimony. There are reasons to do it purely for commercial reasons, without even thinking about whether we're trying to create a closed loop, cradle-to-cradle, circular manufacturing system. We can pursue materials parsimony purely for the potential business benefits and the simplicity benefits that we generate out of it. Now, again, I recommend as you do this, you be thinking about the future steps, because the choices you make about materials sourcing decisions, those decisions will implicate the capability of your materials portfolio, your materials palette, to be successful in the context of a closed loop system, right? In the context of a circular economy. So you'll be wanting to think about those future steps, but just even getting started on this for purely business reasons alone will get you started down the path. All right, so that is the materials parsimony piece. Materials parsimony is the foundation. We will see in the next set of series around the next biosphere rule about how materials parsimony as a foundation facilitates the next steps. So see you across in the next set of videos.